Hey, well, good morning, everyone. I think it's 9 o'clock, and I'd love to get started because we've got kind of a full session here. I'm Dale Ketke. I'm going to be presenting with Darren Jeffert here. This is the first of two application insight sessions this morning. The next one is right after this in room 2005. In fact, Victor, who just walked in over here, is going to be presenting at that one. So I'd encourage you to go and attend that one as well. This has been a great build experience for me so far. I've spent a lot of time out at the booth talking to customers that are using application insights, that are just trying it out, that would just want to know more, and it's just been super rewarding to hear the people having success with this, hear what people need and want to make it even better, and so I've been having just a great time here. So, just a quick reminder, please do submit your evaluation from this. I guess there's prizes and all kinds of things, but appreciate it if you do that. So today, we're gonna cycle through and do a little bit of just level set for everyone here. We're gonna talk for just a couple minutes on kind of modern application management lifecycle. Then that'll lead into what is application insights. We'll do kind of an introduction to get everyone going. We'll show you the experience of getting started and the value that you get without writing a line of code. Then we'll dive into actually how you use application insights to understand your customers and improve your application, improve your business. And we'll do that by looking at the results of actually one of our top customers, real customer in action there. And then we'll wrap up with some call to action. So this quote kind of sums up our situation here. This is from H. James Harrington, a well-respected expert on efficiency and efficiency and quality issues. And it says, if you can't measure something, you can't understand it. And if you can't understand it, you can't control it. And if you can't control it, you can't improve it. And this applies really well to our challenge of writing applications and making these applications relevant and making them successful. Because writing applications is hard, right? I mean, you need to innovate constantly to stay in touch with what's going on in society and what's going on with your competitors. You need to evolve the application in ways that make sense and are beneficial to your customers. And then you need to deliver this in almost real time, daily deployments. And doing this successfully means you need to have data. Otherwise, you're just kind of shooting in the dark with anecdotal information from people you may see, you may talk to, but actually having data to make truly data-informed and data-driven decisions is super valuable. So the modern application lifecycle is this trade-off between development and operations. Actually creating the application and running it, and it has a lot of challenges here as you go through the cycle of plan, develop, test, release, monitor, and learn. If we start up in the upper left there, the first thing you need to do in planning is you need to prioritize what you're going to do in this next iteration. I mean, what are the features I need to build, or the features I need to improve, or the things I need to deprecate? And and the challenge is it's hard to do that today if it's not based on actually real data. Then you've got the challenge of collaborating between development and operations. They may use different tools. They don't necessarily speak the same language. How do I hand off the actual operation of my application when it's deployed and live? Then operations, they're charged with quickly detecting when issues happen, and they need a way to do this so that they can reduce the mean time to detection. And then finally, they need the information so that they can quickly resolve these issues and actually get your application up, back and running with full availability. And these are all hard problems. And I think application insights can help with these problems and answering a lot of the common questions that you have to deal with. I mean, questions like, am I meeting my service KPIs? My application crashing? How many people are impacted when there are problems? What's the root cause of these problems? Is my application loading fast enough? What features are my customers using and not using, and so on and so on? There's a lot that you need to know and understand about your application to really be successful. So this is where application insights comes into play. It can help you with these same challenges. So in a nutshell, Application Insights does three things. The first is that we collect telemetry from all of the places where your application is running, be it on mobile devices of all different types, the back-end server, the browser where your customers are using your web app. And a super important note here, okay, so if you don't remember anything else from this whole presentation, remember this, that when we talk about monitoring your application running on your server, it doesn't have to be an application running in Azure. It monitors applications in Azure just fine, but it could equally well be monitoring an application that you're running in your data center, that you're running on your workstation under your desk, an application that's running in another hosted environment at Amazon or Rackspace or somewhere else. Application Insights itself is completely agnostic to where your server application is running. Okay, so after we collect the data is sent to Application Insights. We process the data, we store it. And then thirdly, we present this to you in sort of a 360-degree view of your application. We'll tell you about the availability of your application, is your application performing, and how are your end users using the application? What things do they use? What things don't they use? What's their experience? So the pillars of the product then are really these three things. The first is a 360-degree view that we just talked about. Okay, understanding, in one experience, what's the application availability, the application performance, and the end user behavior, right? Typically, the way you do this is, I have this one product over here that's measuring availability, and it's really good at measuring availability, and I have another product over here that I use to do application performance monitoring and exception monitoring, and still a different product over here that I use for my user analytics. And I've got to kind of correlate stuff between these products. The idea here with this 360-degree view is that this data is all in front of you in one single UI. You can correlate between these. You can understand really what's happening by looking at all these disparate views of how your application is being used. Then we also have a set of powerful insights. So out of the box, we present this data to you in ways where we have the sort of key metrics that you need to understand, and metrics that may be affecting those right out of the box to help understand, again, your availability, performance, and your user analytics. And then we have built-in analytics solutions where I can do multidimensional analysis across aggregated metrics and across my actual raw data, events and requests data, and really dive deep by applying filters and into a rich sort of aggregation and search experience. And we'll show you how those, we'll actually demo those in just a few minutes here. Oops. So the experience in Application Insights in the portal starts with the overview blade. So here we'll give you a summary of what's happening in your application. We'll tell you about what's happening. In this case, this is an example of one for a web application, like an ASP.NET web app. So it'll tell you what's happening on the server. What are the server, the request times to process requests on the server? What's the page load time, which is a measure of the experience that your customers are seeing for your application. Things like how many, like the rate of requests, the rate of failures, and then a whole bunch of other buttons there where I can dive in and learn more. I can see trends about what's going on my usage of the application, and each one of those is a rich drill-through experience. And that drill-through is what's crucial to this. So, you can always drill in from some level of information to learn more, to dive in, to really get down to the root cause of issues, whether it's root cause of user behavior, root cause of service interruptions, and so on, and answer the really hard questions, like, do I have network issues? Which request is most problematic and failing most often, and so on. When we get really down into drill downs in here, there's two principal tools in Application Insights. There's Metrics Explorer and there's Diagnostic Search. And again, we'll demo these for you in just a second. Metrics Explorer provides a view over my aggregate metrics, allows me to do multidimensional analysis, to apply grouping to metrics across a particular dimension, to apply a rich set of filters so that I can really dive down and answer specific questions. I can slice data by, by say geography and see what's the experience. Am I seeing more failures in certain geographies than I am in others, and so on. And the same thing in search. I get down all the way down to individual requests and individual exceptions with the full call stack. And again, we're going to dive into that mostly in Victor's session, which is next. And just to touch on these, and Victor will go into these in more detail, but the other big insights are, am I available? So the idea of using points of presence out on the web to monitor my application, either with a simple URL ping or with a complex web test to make sure that my application is responding. We have the ability to diagnose and solve performance issues. And then, very importantly, we have the ability to collect mobile crash information and server exception data and drill right into those. Again, Victor's going to all drill into these things in the next session. That's in 10:30 in room 2005. Okay, where we're going to spend more time here is, again, understanding my customer insights. And so here's where we want to understand, how the customers are using my application, where they're going through my app, and we use this again to prioritize where we want to invest in based on the data that we're seeing about how customers are using the application. And all of that stuff is stuff you get, out of the box without writing any code. You can make this even better because we have custom events, we have custom metrics, where now you can instrument the code to really learn the deep, rich details about what's going on inside your code, to understand your application, your application's funnels, and to understand, your conversion, how basically customers progress through your app using custom events and using custom metrics. And then I can take all this data, and I can, if I want to do even in deeper analysis, or maybe I want to archive this data long term, I can export this data, from application insights into my own Azure Blob storage using our continuous export feature, where I can even choose which data streams I want to export. But at that point, the data is yours, and you can do with it whatever you want. So importantly as well here is we get all of this built-in analytics. Okay, almost everything I'm going to show you is entirely built in without having to write any code across a broad range of platforms. Of course, we do the Microsoft platforms. We've got ASP.NET web applications, but we also support Java applications. We have new support for iOS and Android, as well as Windows Phone, Windows Store, and a whole host of open source platforms as well, all supported in the product today. So literally, when I go to create a new application, as you can see on the right, I can choose what application type. All that does really is optimize the experience around which sort of help and guidance you get, and how your default overview blade looks, because some things are relevant for some types of apps and not for other types of apps. So at that point, let's get in and actually see how we get started using application insights. So what I want to do is just start with very simple new project creation here. So I'm just going to go File, New Project, and choose just a standard ASP.NET web application. So over here on the right, we have Add Application Insights to Project. So I've clicked that, and I'm actually going to select the Application Insights resource to put it into. So I have already a resource in Azure that I have. Otherwise, I can also create a new resource during the process here. I click OK. And click OK here. And so Visual Studio is going to go off and do its thing. So obviously, it's doing a standard MVC, ASP.NET web app, project template creation here. But what it's going to do to this as well as it goes through this is instrument the project out of box. So when I get something I can start with here, it's already got the instrumentation in there, and it's downloaded our NuGet package so that it can report on unhandled exceptions. It can report on my end user usage through the browser, and it's literally all ready to go. What I'll do here in a minute when this loads is I'm just going to run the application and start clicking around, and we'll see that in just a minute telemetry winds up in my application. So while we're waiting for that, because that takes a little bit, here's the overview blade for this. This is in the Azure portal, and this is where I'm going to be sending my data. So you can see, this morning early, I was just checking it out, make sure, yep, everything looks good, we're all working. And again, what I've got here is I've got slices of data from different views of my application. And the top one here is my server response time. I have underneath that my browser page load time, the view of what the client's actually seeing in their browser when they're using my application. I've got the rate of server requests, and I've even got failed requests down here. Down below, there's more information. So I can configure availability here. I can drill into specific details around failures, performance, a view of my servers, browser-specific metrics, usage, and then I've got my trends for usage analytics down below. So let me just pivot back over here. Looks like project is created, so I'm actually going to start that. I actually want to show you just an example of, let's see if I drill down. It's usage shared. If I just open this, you can actually see where Application Insights has instrumented this project. So right here in the layout HTML file, right at the top, is the little snippet of JavaScript code. Okay, it has this is what's going to be sent with every web page. Oops, it's going to be sent with every web page as your users open that web page, and it has in it. Switch back here. It has in it the instrumentation key that specifically identifies this application back to Application Insights. So it sends that key along. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. The good thing is all that stuff is inserted there automatically for you. So, there's the instrumentation key. Now, just a quick note. Let's see. My application should be up and running. So actually, what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to click around here a little bit, and this will cause telemetry data, from the browser application that I'm running here. Again, this is running localhost, right? It's running on my little laptop right here, and I'm going to actually be sending information, from the browser, from the instantiation of the server side of this application, back to Application Insights. So by clicking around, basically, I cause some activity, some request to happen, and we'll get stuff that gets sent back. Just to show you how this works, more or less in real time here. All right, so we've clicked a couple of those. So back in here, so again, this is the JavaScript snippet that's added here. Now, just a note, if instead you already have a web app that's created and you want to instrument this, your existing web app, I showed you the file new project experience. To instrument your own web app, what you do is, all right, that tells me that data was sent. What you do is you go to your web application, and if I right-click here, right now this says Open Application Insights. If this project doesn't already have Application Insights associated with it, that will say Add Application Insights, and it brings you into the dialog where you can select, which resource in Azure you want to map this to, which Application Insights resource in Azure, and so on. So, that's how you can, again, in one click, add Application Insights to an existing application. There is one caveat. This JavaScript snippet here doesn't automatically get added to the HTML file if you're adding Application Insights to an already existing project. And the way you do that, the way you get the JavaScript snippet is like this. So I go to my Application Insights resource in Azure. Okay, this is just where we were. And I click on the Quick Start icon here. Okay, that's going to open just some guidance on to how to get working with this. And down here is Add Code to Monitor Web Pages. So I click on that, and here is that same snippet of code. So I just copy this. I paste it into my project. and then you're off and running with all the application insights integration that you need. Okay, it's the same, I mean, if you look at it, in fact, this will be, the same instrumentation key here, what it's 736 on the end, as we see in Visual Studio here. Okay, so at this point, I've gone from nothing to a new project, not written any code. Application Insights has done all this for me, and I should be able to come over here, refresh this, and probably see, okay, yep, there's we happen to have some kind of poor latency right now, maybe just a network over here, but there are the transactions we just did. Okay, I must have clicked quickly and caused a failure in one of them, but I can start to drill into these now, and and see and start to get a lot of value out of that. I can see server requests with some more supporting data. I can see which requests I'm getting most often. This is for the last 24 hours. I could change this and see just what we've done in the last hour. So it's just the handful of points that I just recently did, or a handful of clicks that I just recently did. I could drill into browsers. I can see what's going on there, and for instance, where my time's being spent. So this much client processing time. This is my send request time, my receiving response time, and so on. And see which pages are loading most slowly. If I had browser exceptions, I'd be able to see this down here. And similarly, I can drill into our usage hub and see still more specific usage data and start clicking around. See all this stuff, the important takeaway here is I'm getting all this value without writing any code yet. Okay, this is extremely powerful. With just a few clicks, you're completely onboarded to Application Insights. Now, of course, the one place where you would have to write code, I get things like users, sessions, page views, and all that for free. Obviously, if I want to use custom events, I need to write custom events into my code. Kind of goes without saying. And so we help you right here in the product, and just give you an example of how to do that. And it's literally just one simple line of code. You can go out to to our website and still get all the documentation there as well to learn how to do that. So that's kind of the quick getting started with Application Insights. I can see that in just a minute I go from really having no telemetry information about my application to being fully onboarded here. I can test it from my own workstation to make sure everything's working. And now what I want to do is show you how this is working in production. So I'm going to ask, my co-presenter, Darren Jeffers, coming up, and he's going to show us how this is working in the real world.
Just give me one moment to unlock this. Make sure it's all still working.
Are you on? Sorry, was it?
Actually, if you put it back on the slide, we'll use the slides first.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect. Yeah, so my name is Darren Jefford. I'm a lead architect in EMEA for the Microsoft Services organization. So we've been, we kind of partnered with the Application Insights team for about kind of 6 to 9 months, really looking about how we can get telemetry as part of every single project that we do. And actually, I've been at the booth the last few days, and lots of people have come up, which has been fantastic. And my stock question is, what are you using today? How are you getting insight? How are you understanding the performance of your applications? How are you actually understanding the usage and the exceptions and so on? And pretty much most people kind of look at their shoes a little bit and go, we're not really using anything, or we're using a little bit here. We haven't really got that insight in our projects. And the same has really been for Microsoft Services, the engagements that we do with customers. Yes, we've got logging frameworks and we've got some insight, but the level of insight isn't really where we need it to be. And this is really where we've been focusing on Application Insights to really try and get this as part of everything that we do. Now, a key challenge that actually exists without Application Insights today is around cross-platform hybrid applications running in various different parts of infrastructure. And there's actually no key common technology. If you have a phone application, you end up using a different logging framework. If you have a website running on-premise or running in Azure, you end up using, again, different logging frameworks. This telemetry ends up in log files on servers. You then need to go and write code to go and pull those log files down, do some parsing, pushing it into a database, and you end up spending a huge amount of time. And actually looking at some of the projects that we have built, where we've actually gone and used telemetry, maybe half as much of the actual project development time has been spent on implementing a really good, credible telemetry solution. And what we've really got, as we'll see with Application Insights, is an almost kind of one-click type of experience that we're driving through. So one of the things we're going to talk about, what we're actually going to demonstrate here, is a major European football team with a worldwide following. There'll be an announcement next week around the exact identity of the football club, although already there are some big posters around San Francisco, so they got a bit ahead of themselves. And I'll show the architectural slide, but the key thing about this project is around engaging potentially 400 million fans worldwide. So it's a huge fan base. And of course, there's a need for technical and support and performance kind of monitoring of this type of solution. But also, is the solution even successful? Part of the relationship, part of the engagement we have with the football club is about engaging these fans. It's about monetizing the fans. It's about building that fan support. Without telemetry, we've got no idea if people are using it. Are they actually coming back and using it regularly? Are they moving on and kind of using new features? So actually having that insight is absolutely fundamental. When I first started with this project, you actually looked at the complexity of the telemetry infrastructure they were going to write, and actually it was going to be quite limited, but the amount of effort was significant for the project. And we've pretty much eradicated all of that effort and are using this out of the box. And it's not a straightforward, kind of very simple solution. We have cross-platform applications, so we have the Windows Phone devices, Windows Slate devices. But we also have iOS and Android applications that we're building as well that will be released in the stores next month. So actually trying to get a consistent telemetry framework that works across multiple platforms, even on the device side, is hard enough, let alone actually looking at the architecture, which you can see on the slide. So there's a REST web API that we're using that all of the services talk to. And we're using pretty much just about every part of Azure as part of this solution. We have web jobs and background processing roles. The messaging design is heavily asynchronous. So for a lot of operations, a phone app will call the web API, a message is placed on a queue. Very shortly afterwards, hopefully, that message is picked up off of a queue and some back-end processing is done. And it's absolutely imperative for us that we have a view across that complex architecture. If I go ahead with the application and press a button here, I want to see the telemetry from the device. I want to see the telemetry from the web job that's picked a message up off a queue, and then the telemetry of what it then goes and does with the back-end services. So we've got a great left-to-right view, which is something I've always strived for with projects that I've delivered before, but this kind of cross-tier stitching and correlation has always been a bit of a holy grail. So complex architecture, cross-platform, and let's go ahead and demo this. So let me just switch across. So this is I pressed the right one. There we go. So this is actually a pre-production application insights instance in the environment. So we're currently testing the application in beta, and we have a number of users using the application. The infrastructure is running. So this is real data. This is not simulated. And we thought it'd be good to actually show a real live solution here. So right away within the application insights kind of dashboard here, we've got an idea of, we'll just zoom out, server response time, the number of server requests, and actually the failed requests. So right away on the front page, I can see what's the average of the server response time, and it's pretty good. Probably could be a little bit lower. How many 140,000 kind of server requests going on here, and kind of 31 failed requests. So if I go ahead and kind of drill into the actual server response time. Now, it's worth saying all the data that you're seeing here is being collected automatically. All we did was application insights enable our iOS and the Windows Phone apps, the web API, and so on. We have not written any custom code. I will show you a bit right at the end where we've written some custom code. But the team have not had to do anything but apart from a couple of clicks. Now, drilling into this kind of graph here, at the top we can see, we just move the mouse out of the way. There we go. So if we actually look at server response time here, we can see kind of the average over the time period, which I think is 24 hours. We can also see the prior week, which is the dashed line across the top. So at a glance, you can actually look to see if the performance is actually improving compared to the previous week, or maybe getting worse, or maybe there's a regression. So really straightforward way of actually looking at the response time of the web APIs that we're focusing on here. But a crucial part is the dependency information. This is kind of one of my kind of most loved features. Is it's all well and good knowing that a web page or a web API is running slowly, but why? Why is it running slowly? So actually, what Application Insights is able to do as part of the execution is automatically detect dependencies that I'm calling out to. So if I'm calling out to a web service, for example, if I'm calling DocDB or Azure Storage, it can actually detect that I'm actually making those calls and show me what proportion of that overall time is being spent in there. So that automatic dependency information is hugely powerful. Historically, you would have to go in and time every single operation that you do in your code and then raise that custom metric or a performance counter within your application. And anyone in the room who's built applications and implemented performance counters knows how much of a pain it is. Again, this is all automatic and out of the box. So if we go and click on the dependency duration, a key part of these graphs is the ability to dig into them and actually slice and dice the data in a slightly different way. So it's all well and good knowing that, okay, 54 milliseconds is the average dependency duration. But if I go ahead and click grouping here, I can then go and break this down by dependency, for example. And what we should see is, let me just maximize this so you can kind of see it all. And right away, it's actually broken down that average dependency time and showing me kind of the worst offenders, as it were, with regards to the dependency time. So if we drill in here, we can see there's an Azure queue, 807 milliseconds, not great. But it's not just telling me that it's just a, let me just see if I can zoom in and show it at the same time. No, it's not going to let me do it. If I actually hover over that, leave the mouse alone, it's actually showing me the exact queue name. It's not just saying, hey, at Azure queue at a generic level. It's actually showing this specific queue where time is being spent. Again, this is another key level of insight. When you deploy a new application live, everything works perfectly. It's all very, very fast. As queues and storage and databases start to build up with work, things start to slow down. And again, you can get this very early view, this graph over time showing maybe the latency is increasing over time. Another key part is here, actually digging into the server response time is, okay, I've got this overall average, but actually, where should I focus my developers or my test time to actually go and proactively go and diagnose problems before they become problems that the customers report? So right here, you can see a number of actually request URLs. Again, this is automatically collected. So as part of Application Insight enabling, in this case, your web API, it's plugged into the processing pipeline in ASP.NET, and it's automatically logging a request entry each time that API is called. So I can see the worst offenders here. I can see how many times they've been called. If it's only called once and it took 2 seconds, it's not the end of the world. I'll focus on something else. But something that's called quite a few times and taking 1.8 seconds is potentially worth a little bit more of an investigation. So right away, you've got some great insight. So if I go ahead and click on this one, there's all live data, so there's always a bit of a voyage into the unknown, what's going to happen. So actually drilling in, you can see the individual request item here that's actually being logged and actually telling you what the URL was, what the server response time is, response code, kind of 200 and so on, which is all useful. Again, if you then actually dig into the specific request item, again, this is automatically collected. you can see we've got information around the request. And if we go ahead and click these 3 dots here, you can see kind of a broad range of kind of information that's collected around the calling device, the web browser, the actual country or region, user agent string, and so on. So it's actually collecting a fair bit of additional information along the way. And actually, if we drill down here, you can actually see the actual queue names here, and actually how time is being spent. If we go ahead and do load more, let's see if we've got anything else showing up other than queues. There's a lot of queues used here. Okay, so yeah, another queue. Try to see if we can see a web service in there, but there you go. So actually, there's a web call actually to Active Directory, which we're using as part of the service. So actually, we can see here we're calling that, and at 397 milliseconds, called 277 times. That dependency information has just been automatically provided to me. So if we actually go back to that main blade, obviously you can look at server requests, but failed requests is another key aspect to bear in mind. So I'm not going to go into a massive amount of detail in this. Victor's got a session kind of afterwards. But just to highlight a couple of things, it's all well and good knowing that you've got some failed requests, but what are the worst offenders? What are the actual web services or web pages or so on that are actually raising the most or highest number of exceptions? What are the worst offenders? So you can see here there's an API call, 22% of them. And actually, you also get a view of dependency failures. If you're calling out to Azure Storage or DocDB, you can actually highlight any actual errors there. If you're getting throttling from DocDB, which we had recently in some performance testing, you can actually get visibility of that right away. And again, you can see individual exceptions. You can drill into them, see the call stack, and so on as well, which is really powerful. So if we kind of move on and actually go and look at Diagnostic Search, for example. So those are some curated kind of views actually within the, hang on, let me just click that. There we go. So actually there's an ability to do kind of free text kind of search across the application insights information here. And actually, as we were drilling through those various views before, you can actually see the sort of automatic searches coming up. So you can see here, it's filtered, it's showing traces, requests, page views, exceptions, and we can see a bunch of trace here. So you can go ahead and filter out and say, I just want developer level trace, I just want to see exceptions, custom events, and so on as well. And if we actually look at one of these things here, if you've got a specific problem maybe with a module, so let me just find module name. So there's the ability as well to actually filter the telemetry down to a particular component, for example. So if I go ahead and pick something like this, this will then, when it refreshes, will actually show all of the telemetry actually raised by that component. So if you are trying to diagnose, actually see some actual behavior of what's going on, we can actually dig into that component, and you can actually see there's a number of custom events we're raising, there's a number of exceptions being raised in there as well. So you can see there's a JSON kind of serialization exception. We're actually raising a custom event around poison message processing. And again, you can go ahead and drill into an exception and see the kind of the full stack trace there and so on as well to actually understand what's going on. Now, a hugely valuable piece, which is very, I had to pick one where nothing came up. Let me just pick another one. Let me just remove the filter. Come on. Let me just go, let's see if we can do. Come on. Okay, let me just paste in. So another aspect is this whole user session ability. So one of the things I'm going to demonstrate now is actually searching for a user ID, for example. So I have a mobile application, I'm logged in, there's some form of unique GUID relating to my identity. So potentially, I have a problem with the application, and I log a support ticket to say my app doesn't work. It comes up with some sort of error code actually on the web page. So I've got the ability within the application insights to dig in to the telemetry and actually see what are the operations that are actually being called by the application, what's failing, what are the things you've gone and done before. So if I go ahead and paste in a search ID, which is in this case a GUID, again, you can set this to whatever you like. And what we should see is a bunch of custom events and requests and so on that actually have been logged as part of my operation of actually using the application. And you can go ahead and actually see kind of the user ID here. So you can see a custom event. If we scroll down, we can go ahead and see a request that's actually been executed here and some information. And if I go ahead and click on a request, for example, we've also got the ability to view a session. So when I go and start this application on my device here, and I log in, and I do a bunch of requests, I'm not only generating telemetry on my device, I'm generating telemetry in Azure on a bunch of different services. So one of the things that is easily overlooked, and there's quite a bit of telemetry, which is always good, is actually you can click here and actually view all of the telemetry for that user's session. So if you found an exception trace, for example, and you don't know how the user got to that point of the processing, you've got the ability to dig in and look at a user's session and actually see what they did before. So you effectively got that repro steps of actually understanding what did they click on, what exceptions happened before. So if we go ahead and click on the user's session, then you can see that some custom events have been raised. There's a request to retrieve achievements here. If we scroll down, there's a bunch more requests, and there's actually quite a bit of telemetry in this processing. So this is telemetry on the device and telemetry on the server correlated together and actually linked to my user session as well. So diagnosing a fault and so on is incredibly easy, and already this has proved its kind of weight in gold. So an aspect actually is a question I've heard quite a few times on the booth and actually just before the session started is, okay, this all looks great, but what's the performance overhead of adding this to my solution? If I go ahead and add all this wonderful telemetry, is the app going to be crawling? Am I going to have a load of kind of CPU processor overhead actually on the server? So I wasn't sure. So actually one of the things I got the project to do once we got a lot of telemetry added is to run the Visual Studio Profiler against the mobile applications and the back-end Azure services, and it didn't even appear. So it didn't even actually appear at anywhere at the top of the list or anything. So the actual performance overhead, the batching work that the team have done to kind of not just send the telemetry, open an HTTP connection each and every time you raise a telemetry event, the batching and sending that work works really well. So let's have a quick look at the page view information. So again, I have a number of phone applications. So we have Android, we have iOS, we have kind of Windows Phone and so on. And just by adding application insights enabling those applications, you immediately for free get a bunch of views of the forms or the pages in your application that are being used. So a splash screen, you go into a certain feature for search or playing a video or so on. We're automatically collecting an application insights kind of page view event for each of these things. So we can see here there's a splash view controller. That was refreshing. So you can see here there's start screen, virtual ticket information here. You can not only see the number of users, the number of sessions as well, and that's automatically done for us. If we look at the top up here, around page information, you can see the total number of page views, users, pages by session, and so on. Again, this is automatic. I haven't had to do anything custom. And I can go ahead and maybe group by device model. So actually, if I'm trying to do prioritization of features and what devices are people using and how are they using it, by actually grouping by device model, I can see the iPhone is, so far in our testing, is by far the most popular device. followed by a kind of a Windows phone here. And so again, getting that visibility into what devices people are using, what language as well. So you can go ahead and actually monitor what locales are people installing the app to help prioritize language translation, for example. And also really providing the football team insight into where are people using the application. This kind of partnership, this trying to engage fans around the world. If we scroll down, we'll see that in the usage view as it happens. So again, that page view information, again, we haven't had to do any custom work in there. And this really blew the development team away. And to give you an idea of how easy this was to add to the Java and the Android apps, we got like an early alpha of the SDK. The team had telemetry flowing in about 5 minutes on each of the applications. So they had it up and running, no particular issues there. So if we go ahead and look at custom events, now the one area where code has been added to the solution is around providing that more detailed information on events in the code. So we're actually using this for technical events as well as functionality events. So if I go ahead and use a feature within the application, we actually write a line of code calling track event, and we actually log a feature, and we can see how many times, in this case, our memory cache was hit, which is a useful technical thing, and there are some functionality things below as well. So we can see how many times that happened, how many users, and how many sessions. Again, if I scroll down, you see there's some in users. So again, you can see the unique count of information. If we drill into users, which is another pivot, which you can see here. Country or region, come on. There we go. So actually we see here the number of users. There's only one user, obviously, in the last 24 hours. The development team are on national public holiday today. So actually drilling into the users, you can see one user, 4-page views, and you can actually see a breakdown of actually which countries have those people been using that information. So if I expand this view to like the last 3 days, we hopefully will see more data. Come on. Come on, give it another second. It's not the end of the world, but yeah, there we go. So we can actually see kind of more kind of country information here, and what will appear is the number of actual users and the actual number of sessions. So one last thing I just wanted to touch on is fantastic amount of telemetry that's been added. We haven't had to actually lift our finger to actually add almost all of this telemetry. The continuous export feature is something that is worth bearing in mind. Obviously, you've got the portal views. You've got that great views into the data. You can slice and dice and group that information. You can also continuously export all of the telemetry or certain categories of telemetry into an Azure storage, blob storage location, and you get JSON export files in a blob storage location, at which point you can then grab that data and go and use that and archive it for your own processing. One of the things that we've done for the customer actually is actually extracting a number of the usage events around features and so on. And we're actually using Azure Data Factory to process that information and actually deliver a Power BI dashboard to the end, to the football club, to actually give them insight in kind of almost real time, actually around what engagement and so on they're actually having along the way. So I think that was everything that we needed to show in there. So this is a live solution. This project will be announced formally next week at the Ignite event. The actual applications will be deployed into the retail stores at the beginning of May, where you can go ahead and actually install them, watch videos, and actually engage with the football club. So hopefully that's given you a good view into the types of insight you can create. So let's switch back.
Wow, thank you very much. That was awesome.
Thank you.
All right, so we actually have, we've actually gone to public beta just this week, and we've done that with having already brought on board a bunch of significant companies here. We've got, I think, 450,000 applications being monitored by Application Insights now. Here are some of the larger ones. Obviously a bunch of Microsoft and other names that you'll recognize. And this is just a sample quote here from one of our customers, Maestro. But the amazing thing that we often hear from customers is how much they learn in the first hour and day and week of using Application Insights. Things are going on that they simply didn't know. Just by instrumenting their application, they learn a lot more about what's going on. So as I mentioned, we did declare, we're in public preview, as of Wednesday after the keynote. So there are 3 tiers of service that Application Insights is available in. There's a free tier, standard tier, and premium tier. The free is what we think the vast majority, 90+% of our customers will be able to get through that. You could certainly use that, all through your development phase. These are really differentiated a little bit on features, but primarily on the amount of included volume of data with each one of the plans. And so, as you send us more and more and more data, as your app becomes wildly popular, it costs us money to process this, and so we offset that with the paid, the standard and premium tiers. There is, during our preview period, our months of preview now, the prices will be 50% off of the standard prices, and there's more information available on the web about that. There's a call to action here. Try Application Insights. Hopefully you saw this morning how it's easy to get going with this. It's not a big barrier to entry. You can get right to our information at aka.ms Application Insights. Also, up on the 3rd floor, there's a code challenge. So try that out today, or you can do it online at the URL shown there. Attend Victor's session. So at 10:30 this morning in room 2005, Victor's going to be presenting on fast and powerful diagnostics, problem solving with Application Insights. Victor is a world-class expert in application performance monitoring, so I'd really encourage you to go to that session. And then, coincidentally, at the same time as this session was another session, so you can watch that offline on Windows Store analytics and monetization. That also has tie-ins to Application Insights, so I'd encourage you to do that. Darren and I will both be at our booth up on the 3rd floor most of the rest of the day, and so please stop by if you want to spend some more time. We're happy to talk to you and answer questions, and or you're welcome to reach out to me. My email's on there. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll take any questions you have. So.
Yep. First of all, thank you very much for that product, because it's exactly what we were looking to. I have a bunch of questions and start from a mobile part. You mentioned that you support iOS, Android, Windows Phone. What about Xamarin? Do you have SDK for Xamarin?
We don't yet have an SDK for Xamarin. I can assure you that this is a top customer ask, and the team has this on their backlog. So we've heard this a lot.
Okay. The next question is, for example, I develop iOS, Android, Windows Phone applications. So should these applications be treated like different applications or like one application?
Well, that's really up to you. You can do it either way. And really, it depends, basically on the use of that instrumentation key. And, as you saw, the way Darren did this for his customer is they have both the server components and, the components for each of the different types of mobile apps, all reporting into one Application Insights, container, one application view, in the portal. So you can do it either way, and if you do them separately, it's perhaps easier to separate out your telemetry across the different instances. On the other hand, then there is no kind of single combined view currently. So, did you have?
Basically, on the site, it doesn't have any clarification for what application is. Application is a bucket of telemetry uniquely identified by IT. If you put all of your applications into one bucket, it will show you average load across
Okay. And the last question regarding cluster platforms. So if we develop server-side application for clusters, can that application inside differentiate the cluster where exact event happened on what box in the cluster to understand where exactly that error happens, continuously happens, for example?
Yeah. So there's a server's view that you can go into. I mean, I think what you mean by a cluster is this just across multiple instances, right? And so there is a view where I can see what's happening on which server. And you can also see this. Victor, you'll probably show some of this when you're looking at exceptions, right?
Because you're talking probably about stance. You have the same application running on this cluster versus that cluster. You
Okay.
have an ability to annotate any piece of telemetry that we emit with your own custom tag. So what I would recommend, when you deploy cluster A versus cluster B, put a custom tag A versus cluster B. Then what you'll be able to see is, let's say, overall performance across all your applications in both clusters. And then, as Darren showed, in our segmentation, metric segmentations, you'll be able to see your custom property and segment your performance based on that property cluster A. And you'll be able to see which cluster performance.
You have that right there?
Yeah, and one example of something you can do out of the box is around automatically, it actually collects the VM name, so not the cluster name in that case, but again, you can actually, a useful view we've had a few times is actually looking at exceptions, for example, and actually breaking that down by VM name and just see if there's any correlation. Again, that could be done by regional data center as well. Are we getting more exceptions or longer latency in a different actually regional data center? And breaking that down is a great way.
So you want to go by the microphone or take questions or?
Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've been using System Center Operations Manager to get similar information. This obviously looks a lot better. But for a Windows service or older ERP type systems, is it possible to get this information from a Windows service or even WinForms?
It's not today. Again, we've heard the request from people to do this for WPF applications or Windows services. So this is we've heard that from customers, but it's not possible to do that today.
But regular ASP.NET web services, it's fine?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and one of the things is this kind of dichotomy of kind of tool support and of Visual Studio support. So the worker role thing kind of comes up quite a few times around, can I add telemetry to a worker role? Actually, if you dig into Visual Studio and do file, new project, and so on, you don't get that checkbox for that particular project type. You can go ahead, and we've done this within our project, is you can go and add the NuGet package to any .NET project. So it could be WPF and so on. You're not going to get automatically a bunch of telemetry that you're seeing here for the page views, but again, you can then, each time you navigate from one form to another, you can actually manually raise a track page view, and then you'll get that same view of telemetry that you got within the device application or the website there. So again, you have to jump through a few more hoops. It's actually not that hard, but so you can do it, but the tool support and so on is just not quite there.
Okay. My question is about security, because typically I'd like all our developers to have access to all these pages,
Yep.
but I don't want them to have the same level of access like playing with actual Azure environment subscription. So can I separate access, like, okay, these are a bunch of the people that have access only to this telemetry and nothing else in this subscription?
Yeah. So yes, you can. So because Application Insights shows up in the Azure portal, you have the same permissions model that you have for everything else in the Azure portal. So you can control which users have owner, contributor, or reader access to the Application Insights resource, just as you can for a website or a VM or any other resource that you're using in Azure.
So I can assign. So the way to do this would be assign reader only permission, something like that.
Sure, you could assign someone reader permissions. There's a little subtlety, and probably the easiest thing to do is assign them reader permissions to the resource group, only because Application Insights accesses other resources like alerts and web tests. But to get the easiest way is just, if it works for you, is to assign them reader permissions to the resource group that contains your Application Insights resource, and then everything works.
Okay, thank you.
If I have a server application that resides behind a firewall, so it has no internet access, is there a way to relay the telemetry to a machine that's in a DMZ that can then relay it back to Azure? Do you have any tools to automate that?
Yeah, there's no real gateway solution. For actually, one of the things that's come up a couple times this week from customers in similar secure environments. So there isn't today. If you have a couple minutes afterwards, I'd love to talk to you, learn a little bit more about that, because it's something, having been on System Center for a long time before this, we implemented similar solutions.
Sure, yeah,
So, yeah.
thank you.
If we start instrumenting our desktop applications to collect this data, is there legal ramifications? Do we have to notify users and stuff like that? Did you run into?
I think that's up to you, whether you think there's, or Merav, do you have a?
So just put it in the user agreement at the bottom in really small letters. Perfect, thank you.
What's that?
Do you put in legal notice for your own apps that use application sites?
Yes. Our state is just in the application center, and that's all.
All right, so I will. I'll be outside. I can just wait outside for a little bit.
Can
I
I-
should probably let the next person come in here and get started. But I'll go right outside the door. We can just hang out if anyone has other questions. Otherwise, I'll be up on our booth with Darren up on our booth on the 3rd floor for most of the rest of the day. So again, thanks so much.
Great, thank you.